The Gospel of Thomas is probably the most famous non-canonical gospel. Everyone seems to know a little bit about it. They'll ask questions like, why is the Gospel of Thomas not in the New Testament? Or, did you know the Gospel of Thomas might be an independent source to the sayings of Jesus?
Imagine you are living in the 2nd century. Christianity is growing, but not all followers of Jesus agree on his teachings. One group values a secret gospel, believing it holds the actual words of Christ. For centuries, this lost gospel stayed buried in the sands of Egypt, hidden from everyone. But in 1945, a discovery changed everything. The Gospel of Thomas. Unlike the New Testament, this ancient text claims to show the real words of Jesus, words that challenge what we thought we knew. Why was this gospel ignored? Why was it hidden? Who wanted it forgotten? And what secrets does it keep? You are about to find out. The revelation is concerning. The discovery at Nag Hammadi. The Gospel of Thomas, also known as the Coptic Gospel of Thomas, is a collection of sayings attributed to Jesus. It is not included in the Bible or the canon of the Christian faith. This text was discovered in 1945 near Nag Hammadi, Egypt, along with other ancient writings that make up what we now call the Nag Hammadi Library. Two farmers were searching for a type of rock to use as fertilizer when they found a large jar hidden behind a boulder. Inside the jar, they discovered a set of old leather-bound books. Nearby is the site of an early abbey built by Pachomius, the founder of Christian monasticism in Egypt. The Nag Hammadi Library contains 52 books, written in Coptic on papyrus, organized into 13 volumes. 12 of these volumes are separately bound in leather. Most of the books have Gnostic themes, but the Gospel of Thomas is different. The Gospel of Thomas only includes the words of Jesus. No background stories, birth narratives, or accounts of his crucifixion. It has 114 sayings. This text is controversial because about 80% of its content is similar to that found in the 4 canonical Gospels of the New Testament: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. For example, several sayings in the Gospel of Thomas also appear in the Bible. Why was it excluded from the Bible? The Gospel of Thomas has many similarities to the other Gospels, but it was not included in the Bible. It seems like there was a decision to keep it out. When books like the Book of Enoch are left out, it's often because they don't fit with accepted teachings or contradict known facts, like claiming the earth is flat when all the evidence shows otherwise. Those kinds of texts tend to get excluded or even banned. For example, Enoch focuses on fallen angels, which many people dismissed as fiction rather than as divine inspiration. They wanted to keep fictional stories out of a factual book. The Gospel of Thomas is different. It doesn't have those issues, yet it was still ignored. Interestingly, some respected scholars believe Thomas was written before the 4 main New Testament Gospels. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Mark is often considered the earliest, so if it borrowed from Thomas, it raises questions about what influenced the others. Some scholars believe the canonical Gospels may have been shaped by Thomas or by a source known as the Q source. The Q source is a hypothetical document that serves as detailed notes on what Jesus taught. Scholars believe it served as a standard reference for writers of the Gospels. The author of Luke even alludes to this in the beginning. Many have undertaken to draw up an account of the things that have been fulfilled among us, just as they were handed down by those who were eyewitnesses and servants of the word. Since I have carefully investigated everything from the beginning, I decided to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus, so that you may know the certainty of the things you have been taught. This shows that many competing stories were around at that time, which must have confused early followers. Even with these overlapping accounts of Jesus' life, the Gospel of Thomas was never included. Early church leaders studied it as scripture and quoted from it. For instance, saying 52 from Thomas is found in St. Augustine's writings, and saying 113 appears in St. Macarius of Syria's work. His kingdom is spread out upon the earth, and people do not see it. Macarius also referenced other sayings of Thomas. Many people call the Gospel of Thomas a Gnostic text, but it's more complex than that. It doesn't contain typical Gnostic ideas: no evil creator God, no cosmic realms, or ruling spirits like in the Gospel of Judas. Instead, it shares interesting, wisdom-filled sayings from Jesus. It got classified as Gnostic mainly because it was discovered with those other texts, leading to guilt by association. I believe it shows signs of authenticity, so excluding it, or at least not recommending it, seems to suggest efforts to hide it. Not every detail about Jesus or the Old Testament made it into the Bible, and that's fine. There were always other books suggested to deepen understanding or fill gaps. The Bible even mentions several of these, like the Book of Jasher, the Book of the Wars of the Lord, and the Book of Nathan the Prophet. These books weren't included in the Bible, but people acknowledged they existed and encouraged reading them for additional context. The Gospel of Thomas, however, was rejected entirely, and I suspect there's a strong reason for that. Authorship, inconsistencies, and Gnostic influences. Let's revisit the authorship of the Gospel of Thomas. Unlike the Book of Enoch, where people might think it came directly from Enoch, no one seriously believes that Jesus' disciple Thomas actually wrote this Gospel. The likely author is Didymos Judas Thomas, or we might not know for sure. We do know it was written about 50 to 100 years after Thomas died. Surprisingly, this isn't the main reason people question its authenticity. The interesting part comes next. About 80% of the Gospel of Thomas matches what we see in the canonical Gospels. However, the remaining 20% raises serious concerns, which is why many dismiss it. These differences are not just minor flaws, they are significant. It's like building a dream house with all the features you want, but with a weak, cracked foundation. No matter how vital the upgrades are, if the base is unstable, the whole thing can fall apart. That is what happened with the Gospel of Thomas. Its core issues do not hold up. For example, it gives Thomas a prominent role not found in the 4 main Gospels. This could be understandable, since the Gospels differ in details and sometimes point out issues with one another. For instance, John doesn't include the story of Jesus' birth, and sometimes John criticizes Peter. So, you could see this as Thomas having a different perspective. But some parts flat out contradict other accounts. Consider the idea of favoritism. Jesus never showed that people followed him because he welcomed everyone, even outcasts. He would touch the sick when others avoided them, which troubled the authorities. Jesus was all about inclusion. Next, there's the lack of apocalyptic themes, which is concerning. Historically, Jesus often talked about the end times, and early Christian writings reflect that early believers expected Jesus to return soon. After witnessing miracles, it made sense to them. But in Thomas, nothing about Judgment Day or major upheaval. Instead, it says the kingdom of God is here now if you figure out the secret in Jesus' words. This contradicts ideas like Jesus' parable, in which one worker is taken and another left behind. At the end times, Jesus made his messages clear with simple stories anyone could understand, not mysterious puzzles. Yet Thomas presents the kingdom as an inner journey instead of a future paradise. It even mocks those who see the kingdom as a physical place. It emphasizes know thyself over knowing God and dismisses basic practices like prayer and charity as useless or even wrong. Many sayings make Jesus seem hard to understand and twist core teachings present in other Gospels. All this leads scholars to consider the Gospel of Thomas as a product of early Gnostic thinkers, likely from the 2nd century. This links to why it was rejected, Gnosticism itself. Gnosticism emerged as a branch of Christianity in the 2nd and 3rd centuries, promoting the idea of hidden knowledge about Jesus, God, and salvation meant for an inner circle, like Thomas. Reading Thomas often starts with familiar sayings from the main Gospels, then shifts into Gnostic ideas. It attracts regular Christians with what they recognize, then guides them toward more secret beliefs. To me, Gnosticism feels like a mix of Christianity and other traditions. It resembles Buddhism's focus on enlightenment or Plato's philosophy. Many early Christian thinkers admired Plato, who believed that the ultimate good, or God, is perfect and separate from our imperfect world. Plato argued that a perfect being wouldn't create something flawed. Instead, a lesser force, called the demiurge, made the material world. Many Gnostic groups embraced this idea, which caused significant tension in the past. Early Christianity's struggle with false teachings. In the early centuries of Christianity, there was a significant problem. There was no central authority until Constantine converted to Christianity around 312 CE. Different Christian groups shared various teachings, many of which were wrong. This situation was similar to many of the stories about Jesus. He shared essential insights, but many tales surfaced, some faithful and others purely made up, like the infancy Gospel of Thomas, which depicts a miraculous but mischievous child, Jesus. There were also other false writings, such as the Acts of Paul, which promoted strict celibacy, in contrast to Paul's views on marriage and respect. This situation resembles today's social media, where distorted stories spread quickly. Groups like the Gnostics claimed they had secret knowledge about Christianity, making it hard to tell what was true or false. Key church leaders such as Justin Martyr and Irenaeus saw the need to counter these false teachings by the mid-2nd century. Early Christians faced a surge of real and fake teachings, as shown in the New Testament warnings about falling away from the truth. A clear example of this confusion can be found in Acts 19, where the sons of Sceva try to cast out demons without a genuine connection to Jesus. Non-canonical texts can help us understand the cultural and spiritual struggles of that time, much as studying historical events such as World War II does. But just because a document is old doesn't mean it's true. Like modern hoaxes, ancient false writings should be scrutinized, as time alone does not make lies accurate. No conspiracy, an organic canonization process, and final thoughts. Many people use the word conspiracy when talking about how the Bible was formed, but I disagree. The New Testament was created slowly over many years by communities looking for what felt true. The Gospel of Thomas shows why this process took time. People found it interesting, but didn't take it seriously. Some texts became popular quickly in early Christian groups. The Gospel of Matthew, for example, has many manuscripts from the 2nd and 3rd centuries. The Gospel of John has even more, about 16 early copies. In contrast, we have only one manuscript of Thomas from the 4th century, long after Jesus and his disciples. This difference in the number of manuscripts and how they circulated explains why Thomas was left out of the New Testament. I believe the Bible has everything needed to follow Jesus, so extra texts aren't necessary. This raises questions about other Bible versions, like the Ethiopian Bible, which some say is the most complete. If the Gospel of Thomas were in that Bible, it would change much of what we understand. A video explains this well, showing why this version is controversial since those in power haven't altered it. What do you think? Let me know in the comments section. Also like, share and subscribe the channel. Thanks for watching.